The major economic impact of the pandemic, of course, is a worldwide recession, a slowdown of economic activity throughout the world, and a recession that is going to affect almost every country in different ways. Now, this economic crisis, this crisis of recession, is a highly unequal crisis. Who are the people who are mainly affected by the crisis? In the United States, both the health impact and the economic recession employment impact has been disproportionately on African Americans, Hispanics, and the working people there. And the demonstrations and protests after the murder of George Floyd represent some of this, partly represents, of course, part of it is a legacy of 400 years of oppression, but it is also the strength of this movement, the power of this movement is also fueled by the extreme economic hardship that people have had to face in the wake of the pandemic. Wherever we look, in India, look who has been the hardest hit by the COVID pandemic. We see these photographs of people, of workers who are walking across the country back to their states from their places of work. There is no question that internationally the COVID pandemic has brought to the fore the extreme economic inequalities that characterize the world, and particularly the capitalist world today. Another feature, I think, of this of the crisis is that economic crisis is that it has brought out the effect of the undermining of the state role in the economy by neoliberalism over the last few decades. The gradual undermining of health systems, of other forms of public services throughout the world, particularly in the US and other advanced capitalist countries, has been shown to be policy that is extremely harmful to the people, particularly the working people, and that unless the state steps in, we cannot end this period of recession and hardship. We saw, again, a very severe economic slowdown from March onwards. The Planning Board has actually tried to study that slowdown. The slowdown was particularly harsh in sectors such as agriculture and related activities, agriculture, fisheries, animal resources, dairying, and so on. It was very harsh in industry and trade. Our small traders, our industries had to stop, particularly in Kerala. Then tourism, IT, power, labor, employment, women's employment, all of these were very severely affected by the economic slowdown after the COVID epidemic started. There was a pandemic started. This of course spread to the economy as a whole. Yeah, it spread to all of these sectors, and of course it spread to the economy as a whole. So we have been trying to calculate the impact in terms of loss to value added, in terms of the loss to people's incomes. But we cannot underestimate the kind of losses that the people have suffered. I think that Kerala has shown a different path in respect of the economic policy response. You see, we have historically been a state that has believed in public action for relief to the people. And public action takes the form of action by the state, and action by the people from below. Let me tell you some of the policy responses. The first and immediate, short-term, immediate policy response was, and that can be the only response. In a situation like this, that is the best and in fact the only effective response, was to give direct benefit transfers to the people. Kerala, the government of Kerala ensured that nobody would be hungry. Not one person would go hungry as a result of the COVID pandemic. So not only was food given in terms of provisions, we also had different kinds of community kitchens. We assured that people would not be hungry. Basic essential commodities were provided to a very large section of the population, and some money, 1,000 rupees, more than 1,000 rupees, were given to everybody below the poverty line, the working people below the poverty line, and other sections of the people as well. So the first indirect benefit, when we transferred direct benefits, first we ensured that people had food and some spending money. The second thing that was done was, and this was, we can see, this was very effective, we also ensured that everybody had shelter, including those workers who have come to our state from other states, who have helped build up our economy. And they were taken care of immediately, especially during the period of the first lockdown. We ensured that nobody was without shelter. This is, I think, one of our very, very great achievements. The third aspect of our public policy at that time was to ensure that everyone had access to medical care. Of course, some people pay, some people get free care, but everyone had access to medical information and to health care. So the fourth aspect, I think, was that one very important part of policy was the provision of public information. Our Chief Minister has a press conference every day where he deals with not only what is happening in terms of the the health aspects of the pandemic, but also announcing different aspects of economic policy. And the system as a whole has been able to provide information to the people at large, and that kind of knowledge has been a powerful instrument of dealing with COVID in Kerala. See, and because of this kind of enlightened public action by the state, Kerala has also, and because of our history, we can depend on a great upsurge of civic cooperation, and help by the people at large. I saw this interview by the journalist Barkha Dutt recently, where one person is asked, a person on the street is asked, what is one of the lessons for you? He said, the lesson is to help other people. And so that kind of spirit of civic cooperation, that we will try and cooperate with the state's efforts. It's a very precious resource that we in Kerala have. And that resource has been used fully during the period of the lockdown and pandemic. So that is one part of the economic response. That is our direct benefit transfers to the people. The second part of our economic response is to try and revive the economy. Of course, we have had severe difficulties because of the finances which are available to a state in the Indian system today. But Kerala has tried to initiate new programs as the lockdown is easing, as economic activity becomes more and more possible. We have been trying to, for instance, the very innovative scheme of Subhiksha Keralam. Subhiksha Keralam brings together efforts by agriculture, fisheries, animal resources, dairying, water resources, cooperation, and of course, very importantly, local self-government and industry, into trying to ensure that our food economy and food processing economy is upgraded during this period. Not only is it revived, but it is brought to a new level. To try and use this crisis to build new things has been also a feature, the second aspect of our policy. Similarly, our Vyavasaya Bhadrata program seeks to improve the condition of MSMEs, of micro, small, medium enterprises. So this is also a part of our policy to slowly start reviving and bringing to a new level our productive forces through reviving economic growth. So direct benefit transfers and economic growth. These two built on a foundation of public action by the state and civic cooperation from below. This has been our policy response. Can you find a single photograph of people in Kerala walking 1,000 kilometers? Can you find a single one? Those heartbreaking pictures of a young woman cycling her father, no? Her father over 1,000. That cannot happen in this state. Do we have any example? What we have is a proud example of civic cooperation. What we have is a proud example of, an example of which we can be proud, of the state itself calling our workers our guests. Has there been any state which has, many states, I appreciate the difficulties in which we're functioning, but I think we can't, in which every state is functioning. So let me not, but where I think this is part of the history of our state, part of the history of the left in our state also, that when a crisis like this occurs, our first concern is for the working people and the poor. And I think that is what demarcates us from every other state. Many people have said and written, there's an enormous asymmetry in India, in our political structure. We in the states, the state governments have the responsibility to, all the major nation building tasks are with the state. Health, education, roads, industry, agriculture, fisheries, forestry. All of these, the major tasks of nation building are the responsibility of the states. But the money for these to fulfill these tasks, we don't have, it's not, the control of that is with the center, predominantly with the center. So until that is rectified, there can be no healthy center-state financial relationships, there can be no healthy and free and robust opportunities for financial development by the states. I hope, now this is becoming very, very evident during the lockdown, during the period of COVID, that every state has now realized that direct benefit transfers are essential if we are going to give the minimum welfare facilities for our working people. But states do not have the money. We have a whole history of states being denied the resources they need to provide for the welfare of their own people. I hope that one of the consequences, and this centralization of resources has been growing over the years. It has happened to the Congress government, it is intensified with the present government. But let us hope that this will serve as an eye-opener to certainly to state governments everywhere, but particularly to the people, that this structure of center-state financial relationships, unequally weighted in favor of the center, cannot survive, should not survive, if we want to be able to provide for the economic welfare of our people. All over the world, people are realizing the importance of public action and development. People are realizing that the state must provide for health, the state must provide for education. People are realizing that the state must step in when there is no employment. People are realizing, look, people in the United States, the bastion the fortress of world capitalism, of imperialism. Today, for 10 days, youth, people like you have been on the streets, despite braving this disease, in order to protest against racism, against unemployment, against injustice. And that is certainly been fueled by the crisis that's now being brought on us, the economic crisis that has been brought on us. Everywhere in the world, there is now a realization that the withdrawal of the state in economic policy and providing welfare for the people has deeply harmed these economies, has been deeply harmful for the people. The kind of concentration of wealth without providing for the public provisioning for the people is harmful, is deeply harmful to the working people. This has become open. It has been the evils of capitalism, of modern capitalism, have been shown in their worst form in the last since the pandemic began. And I believe that people are understanding this. They're fighting back. Whether a new world will emerge, whether a less unequal world, whether a less unequal world, a more equal world will emerge, will depend on the struggles that emerge as a result of this crisis. For instance, there are even other things. For instance, look at the business model of drug development. I hope that changes. That people realize that we cannot leave healthcare. We cannot leave research and development in the area of health to the big capitalist companies. It has to be publicly funded. It has to be funded by international organizations, by people whose motive in doing health research and development is not the profit motive. The motive for research and development in health must be the health of the people, not profit. That is becoming more and more clear by the day. So I hope that the crisis and the struggles that have been caused by the crisis, the struggles for a better life that are taking place today, will lead to a better world, but that is for the future to show. I hope that the COVID crisis, we use our history of public action, as I said, public action from above and public action from below, to build to take off on a new path of growth. This path of growth will involve agriculture and utilizing the great biodiversity of Kerala for higher incomes and a better life for the people. It also means I also look forward to progress in using public action for progress in industrial growth, non-agricultural industrial growth, and we are making new headway in that direction. It is also a great opportunity for us to develop our information technology potential. It's this period. We've developed it over the last few years, but this crisis has accelerated some of our development in this field. I think we should also look to, this is very important, on improving our higher education and improving the modern knowledge and skill levels of the people. That we must use our advantages for growth in agriculture, for growth in industry, for growth in information technology, But we must also build up this great resource that we have of our people by establishing new strengths in our higher education system and in our systems of science and research in science and technology. So I look forward to that. I look forward to that new economic growth and growth in higher education, science and technology.